Hello, welcome to or back to my channel. Today we're going to do something a little different than the usual. I'm going to be talking about Jimmy Snow's explanation video because it sure wasn't an apology. Anyway, so who are these people mentioned in the title? Jimmy Snow is an atheist YouTuber who currently produces and hosts the Sometimes Show. Rachel Oates is a booktuber who occasionally does commentary. And Gabbie Hanna is well, I'll just go ahead and call her controversial YouTuber who has branched out into writing, acting, and music. In 2017, Gabbie Hanna released a poetry book called Adultolescence, which Rachel Oates reviewed in December 2019. And then in 2020, Gabbie Hanna released another poetry book called Dandelion, which she sent to Rachel, which I do believe is usually a sign of, hey, here's my book, please review it. And since Rachel reviews books and poetry, she reviewed it in October 2020. And I guess Gabbie knew the review was not going to be a good one. So she mentioned to Jimmy that she was not looking forward to it coming out. And Jimmy, for some unknown reason, took it upon himself to contact Rachel to ask her to, I don't even know. And it just kind of devolved from there into this thing, and I guess Rachel and Jimmy are no longer friends, and Jimmy was eventually hounded into making this abysmal video that never should have been made. And yeah, I did trim it because it was almost an hour long, and in my opinion that was very unnecessary. And if you want to watch the entire unedited, I mean, I really do think it was unedited, like even on Jimmy's channel. If you want to watch the whole unedited version, it is on Jimmy Snow's YouTube channel. And yeah, I think that's about it for my intro. Let's just dive on into this mess.
Hi there, I am Jimmy Snow, host of the Sometimes Show. Used to be the host of Dear Mr. Atheist. I guess I still am. That is a segment on the thing. Past friend of Rachel Oates.
So that seems like a really weird thing to say. I mean, are we in middle school or something? He goes on to clarify that he doesn't hate her or anything, so I guess that's good, but this still strikes me as really weird and kind of petty, if I'm being honest.
Involved in a debacle between herself and Gabbie Hanna regarding reviews of poetry that Rachel has done and the ways in which Gabbie has responded to those reviews.
My dude, you are involved because you got yourself involved. And if we are to believe your own story, no one asked you to get involved. So really the only reason you're here is because of yourself. You cannot blame Rachel. You can't even blame Gabbie. This is all you.
The few reasons why I resent this. First of all, the reason why I'm addressing it is now because of misinformation that is out there about my involvement. The channel's suffering, and this is my job, and I have employees, and it matters to me.
I find it really interesting that Jimmy is choosing to blame this debacle on his channel suffering and not his content changing. Because, I mean, I would be looking at the content more than this, because, I mean, I guess he doesn't know everything that goes on, but I had no idea of his involvement in it until pretty much this video. I heard little whispers, but not enough for me to go, so I think he's going to be unpleasantly surprised when this video does not actually help. In fact, from what I've seen, this video has hurt his channel, which does not surprise me because this is a bad video. Bad video.
The other reason why I resent this is this might make Rachel look bad.
What a sweet, kind-hearted gentleman holding off on posting the truth because it might make his former friend look bad.
And because we used to be close friends, much closer friends than Gabbie and I. Rachel and I were very close. We were, I think, a part of each other's support system.
So Jimmy goes on to say they were as close as he gets to friends, which is what makes this weird. And I would be willing to bet that Rachel feels the exact same way.
But I will say this, not toward Rachel. Toward the big thing that I resent here is that so many people have left these comments demanding I answer for it, demanding I apologize, and have even had comments who have like, Jimmy, you needed to hear Rachel's side of the story and apologize. And you know what? None of those comments have in here. All of these comments attacking me, telling other commenters they should unsubscribe, and just saying hateful things about me. None of the people driving it have once gone, Jimmy, what's your side of the story? I probably would have addressed this sooner if that was the motivation.
So I have to admit, I have not seen those comments he speaks of, and I have no doubt he got hateful comments because he's a very large creator and people don't tend to like atheists, which was his thing for a while. But, you know, hateful comments are just kind of par for the course. I got hateful comments on my very first upload to YouTube, and you really can't let them bother you, and it feels really weird saying that to someone who's been doing YouTube for years. But he should really know better and not take it so personally. And it also strikes me as really weird that he apparently has like a way he wants to be asked about things. But I mean, at least you know exactly what people wanted from you instead of that really vague message to Rachel where we still don't know what you were asking of her.
Rachel and I were much closer friends, or at least I perceived it. I could be totally wrong, but I don't think I am because I know a lot about Rachel. In fact, the funny thing here is if either Rachel or I really wanted to hurt each other, we know way more about each other. And if either of us were driven by the desire to hurt each other, we could do that. This is not a veiled threat, by the way. That's not who I am, and I just never would do that. I think that would be a scummy, scummy thing to do.
So even when you add, I would never do this, but I could, yeah, that's still a scummy thing to say because you're still putting the idea that, hey, I know this stuff about you and I remember it, and if I really wanted to, I could hurt you with it. I'm not going to because it's like not who I am, but I mean, really, at this point, I'd be willing to bet that Rachel feels she doesn't know you at all and that you are probably like some sort of ticking time bomb that could go off at any moment. So yeah, still a scummy thing to say even when you add, but I would never do that.
Which is why what happened in the conversation she talks about was so surprising when all this went down. And I was hurt. And honestly, by the end of it, it just got to a certain point where I was like, oh my God, this isn't the friendship I thought it was. So I'm just going to part from it.
Very interesting sort of friend who has one misunderstanding apparently, and oh, they're done. Easy come, easy go, I guess.
This is my Facebook conversation with Rachel. And this is how I started it. And do I regret sending this message? Yes, but not because I think I sent anything that was wrong to do, but because of the fallout, to tell you the truth.
So as weird as this is, I really think Jimmy believes he's done nothing wrong, and I also believe he will never be convinced he's done something wrong here.
Hi. So I have no expectations, but I thought you'd want to know while I don't think Gabbie watches the videos themselves, I know the reactions people have to your videos about her poetry definitely hits her feelings. I'm not saying do or don't make the videos, but I thought you'd want to know that the human on the other side of it definitely experiences severe negativity because of it. She hasn't asked me to say this to you, by the way. She told me another one is coming, and it's obvious to me that she's messed up with anticipation. The reason why I sent the message was I had seen the tweets and the things that were actually making Gabbie feel bad because people were already attacking her prior to the review coming out because there were, I think it was tweets and Instagram stories, and these were not constructive criticism, and I will stand by this all day long.
So back in the day when Jimmy was doing his atheist content, did he take responsibility for every time one of his subscribers left hateful or just mean comments on like Girl Defined or Paula Morgan's stuff? Somehow I doubt it. And it also seems very weird that he's putting the hate Gabbie receives on Rachel's shoulders because, well, unlike Jimmy, I have actually been doing research for this video, and I hate to say it, but Gabbie Hanna is not a good person. And I really don't think that deep down, buried below all the crap is a secretly golden heart. I initially thought maybe she's just misunderstood or finding her way, but as it turns out, Gabbie Hanna is not the 21-year-old I for some reason thought she was. She's actually 30. So yeah, I mean, there is a lot of reason that Gabbie Hanna gets hate. Some of it is undeserved, yes, but most of it is not. And yeah, it's really weird that Jimmy is trying to put this on Rachel's shoulders.
I'm not saying that Gabbie shouldn't be able to roll with the punches. In fact, Gabbie can roll with more punches than most people can because she's one of the most hated people on the internet. And by the way, I should tell you all, she's not even my most controversial friend.
That seems like a really weird sort of humble brag. But while we're here, let me just take a moment to read this quote from an interview that Gabbie Hanna did with BuzzFeed. Hanna's Instagram screed about Oates was made long after her review of Dandelion went live. She claims this too was strategic. I never start drama to support stuff, but if there is drama, I will capitalize on that opportunity to promote something, Hanna said. I'm going to take advantage of a moment. Indeed, she started releasing new music a few weeks after reigniting this fight. I finally feel like I'm in control, she said. It's a lot easier to cope with people hating you when you're fanning the flames.
There is, I have political friends who are famous in the political YouTube sphere that you would all be shocked by. But as I've said, like in the case of the political friend, we should be friends with people we disagree with. We should be friends with unsavory characters for the idea that we might be able to change them. I remember when Gabbie first was acknowledging she liked my content, people were telling her to stay away from me, like stay away from him. You don't need to ruin him too. And I was literally sitting there going like, if you think she's so bad and you know what my content's about, shouldn't you root for my existence to make her better?
So, I don't know who needs to hear this, but, well, Jimmy, obviously, but never befriend someone with the intention of changing them, even if your intent is to change them for the better, because at the end of the day, only that person can change themselves.
But there's something I want to point out in here. So I was reacting not to the review itself, though I knew the review was coming. I had never, ever seen a single Rachel review or I have never in my adult life read a poetry book.
Is it just me, or does he seem oddly proud of that? I mean, I haven't read any poetry since high school either because I'm not really into poetry. But didn't he claim to be some sort of really great loyal friend and he's never watched any of Rachel's reviews? That just really makes his message to her even more insulting because he's assuming that her reviews are just petty, catty nonsense with no constructive criticism or anything useful.
I don't care about poetry. Gabbie Hanna, as a friend, sent me a poetry book, and I literally told her like, hey, well, I asked, did you send me a poetry book? She goes, yeah. Tell me what you think about it. And I was like, I feel so awkward because I feel like I need to tell you I will do that, but I'm not going to because I don't care about poetry. I'm not going to read this.
Well, good on Jimmy for not falling for that trap, but yes, we get it. Jimmy does not like poetry, so he decided to get involved in this because why?
I was reacting to these tweets that were not constructive criticism, that were nasty tweets to make. And if Rachel and I were talking about this in private, I would say those aren't useful.
Well, I think Jimmy's show is really going to suffer if he's going to try to come to Gabbie's rescue every time someone, in his eyes, mean tweets about her.
So, in here, I say, I'm not saying do or don't make the videos, but I thought you'd want to know that the human on the other side of it definitely experiences severe negativity because of it. Having seen her tweets, I had assumed her videos included things like, this is making me physically ill. Oh my God, this is like not actual constructive criticism, but basically that she would say the same types of things in her tweets, that her tweet persona and her YouTube persona would be different.
So I don't know how long Rachel and Jimmy were friends for, but it seems really weird to me that he was never the least bit curious about her YouTube persona or what her reviews looked like or anything like that. Or even just wanted to like watch a video to add to her views to just kind of like support her.
So Rachel says back to me, she sent me the book knowing I'd review it. I wasn't going to do a fake review, which I have no problem with her saying because at no point have I said do a fake review or don't review the book. The problem is at 5 minutes, 30 seconds, I think it is. I'm just going to keep playing. She said this.
He felt a little bit manipulated because he said that Gabbie had gone to him and was like really upset that I was going to be making another video about her book. And I was like, but she asked me to. Like, and I didn't understand it. And there was like a whole thing. And I think there was just like misunderstanding and miscommunication on like lots of sides.
So the thing is, that isn't what I said. And I know people are like, yeah, but you could read into that. Rachel's known me longer than that. She didn't know I had autism back then, but people do know now. But she also knew me well enough to know I communicate directly. The words I say are all the words I need.
Okay, so first, going to someone and saying, oh man, I sent your friend my book and they're going to review it and their last review was really harsh and I'm really upset thinking about what they're going to say about this one. That is, a bit manipulative there. And second, what was your point in sending her this message? It's like you took an issue, dropped it in Rachel's lap and made it her issue, but you didn't give her like an indication of how to solve it. I mean, really, the options presented, don't post a review or post a nice review aren't good options, but I said this, it was up to her how to deal with it. That's just a cop-out, and it's lazy, and it's really annoying.
That's absolute crap. I'm not going to be guilted into changing my opinion, which no one has asked her to do. Can you imagine if other authors sent a reviewer a book and said, but you should only publish the review if it's positive? Also never happened. If she doesn't want people critiquing her poetry, she should stop selling overpriced, awful poetry. Once again, so at this point, I still haven't seen any, to this day, I haven't seen her poetry reviews. I don't care about poetry, and there's no real reason for me. However, I have now just seen another example of her using what just seems like overly negative language.
I'm sorry, are you the language police now, Jimmy? This is the second example of her using overly negative language. I would imagine at this point that Rachel feels attacked by you, and you really don't need to flex about not watching her poetry reviews because there's nothing in it for you. At this point, I'm just shocked that you didn't get curious enough to at least go check it out and see what it was that Gabbie felt sick about. As I mentioned earlier, I don't want to be like Jimmy and repeat that I'm not into poetry. But as I mentioned earlier, I'm not into poetry. And I still watched the review because I was curious. And I mean, yes, it was bad for Gabbie, but it was actually a good review in that, you know, it showed Gabbie ways that she could improve and examples and so on. And by the end of it, I was like, oh, you know what? Maybe I should read some poetry. Maybe you should watch the video, Jimmy. You might learn to like poetry. Or at least you could stop being so dismissive of it.
And this makes it sound like Gabbie and I talk all the time. We have talked twice since the beginning of the year.
So you essentially threw away a friendship for Gabbie, and you only speak to her like twice in a 6-month period? That doesn't really make this better. It just makes it even weirder. And how are you going to be that shining influence of goodness in her life if you rarely talk to her?
Rachel starts tweeting about our message. Our conversation doesn't continue. I say something, and instead of replying to me and talking to me, her friend, who not only has been her support system, I literally cared about this girl so much that I put my reputation on the line to go and attack this creator. I did this 4-part series, not attack the creator, that's the wrong thing, but this creator was being awful to her. And the creator themselves, on some of the points, wasn't entirely wrong about transphobia and things like that. And I ended up doing a series shutting that creator down for how hateful and horrible they were being in a lot of ways, but mostly focused on Rachel and my concern for Rachel. I don't think it would be too far to say that as a friend, I loved Rachel.
Well, that's a very interesting way of expressing that friendship love. I just have this feeling that having Jimmy as a friend would be very stressful. I mean, did Rachel ask you to make that series? You say Gabbie didn't ask you to contact Rachel, so I'm just like, what is Jimmy doing getting involved in these things? I mean, I get that you see your friend is upset and you want to help, but sometimes this kind of help just makes things worse.
So she makes these tweets about it, and she says in these tweets, basically that Gabbie sent me to do this. And so I felt like I had to reply, despite the fact that, so Rachel says this in the interview.
Misunderstanding this, like what's happening? And then Jimmy was like, just decided to be like, this is me. I can't believe you're saying this. And I was like, okay.
So this is one of the parts that bugged me because I feel like this misrepresentation is something she knows she's misrepresenting, or if she thought about it, she would. And this is one of those times where when I first watched it, I was like, you are lying right now, or at least being dishonest.
So it occurs to me this all could have been avoided if Jimmy had watched Rachel's poetry review and been like, oh, it's not a personal attack on Gabbie, it's literally just reviewing her poetry book. But instead, we're here where Jimmy is watching Rachel's interview and time-stamping it to prove his point that Rachel is lying.
The way she says it, it's so and so he just decided to, yeah, of course I did. It wasn't, I just decided to, I went, holy shit, one of my friends is attacking one of my other friends and saying it's because of things I said. And so, yes, I identified myself and went, I have to identify myself because this isn't what happened.
So I didn't see those tweets, but from my understanding, they were more or less a sanity check, not trying to paint a narrative against Gabbie, but making sure that, hey, am I crazy? Is this an inappropriate ask? And trying to get confirmation as to whether or not she was in the right from Twitter, which may not be the best place for it, but you work with what you have.
Anyway, so I wrote back, she's a person who basically receives nonstop hatred all the time for a litany of things, many totally undeserved. Only many. There are some things that Gabbie's done that are really cringy, that are really shitty. I don't like everything Gabbie's done. Doesn't stop me from being friends with someone. Maybe she does deserve it for her poetry. As her friend, I do feel bad for how often she tries to show a brave face when she's actually completely or clearly shattered. This is actually what I think happened with, and if Gabbie watches this, for all I know, she's going to message me mad at me. Like, why didn't you talk about this stuff with me? A lot of people bring up this thing on Patreon that she was talking about, like, no, I'm trolling for the views or something. If that happened, because again, I don't know, I didn't see, it sounds to me like the kinds of things that I have seen her say, even in private, where I think she is trying to put a wall around her actual hurt, where I think she catches, like, I really did something that I don't like. So now, because everybody already just thinks I am this awful trash person, I just have to embrace it and say that it was calculated and not just me having a bad...
So watching Jimmy try to justify Gabbie's actions is really interesting. Okay. I don't really know how to respond to that, but I find it very weird. I stand by what I said earlier. I don't think that Gabbie Hanna is a good person. And I don't really think she wants to be. I think she just wants to be able to live her life doing whatever she wants to do with no criticism or accountability. And I mean, you know, that's her, but she's not going to change for you, Jimmy. She's who she is, and I think she actually likes who she is. And it's just so incredibly weird. I think he's actually only seen the criticism of Gabbie Hanna and not actually looked into anything she's being criticized for, which is just so weird, because if maybe I'm terrible or something, but if I see that someone is getting that much hate, I will look into it and see if it's justified or not, because I mean, Gabbie's been doing some really, not just cringe things, but like really bad things. And he must not know about it and just assume everybody's just being a hater because she's, you know, like famous or whatever. But I would highly advise Jimmy, he'll never see this, but I would highly advise Jimmy to check out why people aren't fond of her.
This is the thing. There's going to be so many people in the comments that are like, at the end of the day, Jimmy, you're friends with Gabbie, and so you suck. And I think 99% of those people, if they had a one-on-one conversation with Gabbie, would feel really bad for what Gabbie goes through.
So there will be no discussion in the comments because they were turned off, which is why I'm sitting here making this extremely long video. But even before they were turned off, when I had to look through them thinking about, do I want to say something? Well, they were all fine. There was no like random hate. There was, you know, nothing vicious. It was all very like calm, respectful, gentle. But they were all essentially saying that this was a bad video, and I guess that's why the comments had to go.
So then I did share my feelings, though. I do feel a bit betrayed by taking this to Twitter before we've had our conversation. When my friends are hurt, I have a tendency to want to do something for them, as you've seen yourself when you were hurt, which is totally true. There are people I am very close to. I would list them off, but I don't want to send a harassment thing after them. But people you've met me with on the internet, and when we are close, I mean, there are people who would describe the ferocity of my friendship. I am far more upset when people do things to my friends than things they do to me.
Okay, Jimmy, don't break your arm patting yourself on the back for being such a good friend.
I honestly thought I should tell you because I thought it was something you'd like to know, and because I believed our friendship would at least result in you wanting to hear me out. I'm very sad that this has become a Twitter thing and has been directed at Gabbie too, more for those who obsessively hate her to glob onto. Because that's what was happening. A narrative of what didn't happen was sending mobs after Gabbie at that time. Again, none of this defending any other action Gabbie has taken, which I know people in the comments are going to try to do.
Well, there is no comments, so there's that. But it is telling that he feels he has to add this disclaimer in.
Rachel replies, well, I feel incredibly manipulated right now, and I wanted to know if I am the one in the wrong or not. She sent me her book with the implication that she wanted me to review it, and then cried to one of her one mutual friend about the prospect of me reviewing it. I have no sympathy for that. That message from Rachel seemed so cold and out of character that I'm not surprised that in this interview she revealed that there was a lot of other stuff going on in her life, because to say Rachel has cried on YouTube, Rachel has cried to me privately. Rachel is a person who cries in this interview, expresses when she is hurt and upset through crying. And I do not think I don't think she would accept from anybody them saying, whatever the thing is that made you cry, I have no sympathy for. And so it was bizarre to hear something like that when she has been someone that I thought so empathetic and kind in the past.
So does Jimmy know that cried too is an expression? It doesn't mean that actual tears were involved. And so I just want to say that just because someone is kind and empathetic doesn't mean they're obligated to be kind and empathetic to everyone all the time. At some point in life, you realize that there are people who will take advantage of that kindness and empathy, and you just kind of build up a wall to steel yourself against it. And also, you're talking about Rachel's job. And obviously, if you had watched the video, and Rachel made the video, so she knows this, you would know the video was not attacking Gabbie. It was discussing her poetry and even giving her tips about how she could improve.
Did you know she reached out personally and sent me the book? And no, I didn't. But it doesn't really matter to what this conversation was supposed to be about, and the fact that we should have been having an actual conversation over the phone, or it's still in here one-on-one, and not these pieces of it over on Twitter.
Okay, so what stops you from calling Rachel? You're the one that initiated the conversation. Why did you not initiate it with a phone call instead of over whatever messenger you were using?
I don't remember what the proximity to this too is when she starts drunk tweeting, but did you even see any of my videos on her book? The answer is no. Again, not really relevant.
It is relevant because at any time you could have stopped, watched the video, realized it wasn't what you assumed, and gone back to Rachel and been like, oh, my bad.
Though I guess there is a point in there where it's like, if the reviews themselves are mostly constructive and don't have the same little shitty quips that aren't constructive criticism, aren't cruel.
This really annoys me because it sounds like he's making conditions on which Rachel's reviews would be acceptable, even though he's never watched one, so he doesn't know, that she's already doing it this way. But it's just really annoying that he thinks he has the right to dictate how her reviews should go without ever having even watched one. I mean, just like, how smug can you be?
If that is true and that's not, I don't know because I've never seen them, but yeah, I probably would have changed my approach and maybe I wouldn't have even brought up the review itself. And I might have just said, hey, just so you know, you two are both my friends. And when I see you write that kind of tweet, it kind of makes me wonder what's going on, because this seems like just mean for the sake of mean. Anyway, I write, you have presumed an awful lot though. Her crying to me is not something that happened. And this would have been relevant to the specific, the fact that she used the word crying. Gabbie has cried to me. I don't think about the poetry stuff.
And I'm sure Gabbie really appreciates you sharing that.
But it was above when she says she doesn't care about it. I have no sympathy for it. That was the thing that caught me off guard. But then she quotes me. She told me another one is coming and is messed up in anticipation, which again, it's one of those things that I just don't respond to points that don't matter to me, because it's like, okay, so right, I definitely didn't say she cried. Anyway, another video that she basically asked for. I'm done here. I don't want anything to do with her drama. I'll happily talk about the content of the book like I did in my video, but I want nothing to do with her as a person. If you can find one piece where my praise or critique was unfair, show it to me. If not, leave me alone because I'm just doing my job and what she wanted. So the problem here is that she says she's done. She's not going to do it anymore. But then she gets drunk and starts tweeting. That might be after this response of mine. Okay, well, you should know that she's probably the most hated person on YouTube, and she is my friend. And the instinct I was feeling was similar to the one I felt for you last year when you were being hurt, which is all true.
Oh, and here is the subtle guilt trip. Remember when I did this for you?
Again, it has nothing, not even the content or what the thing is. Literally just, these are both my friends. And so just alerting somebody that this hurts someone felt like the right thing to do. I wasn't trying to attack you, and I didn't say you shouldn't do it. I thought the review was still coming, and I guess I hoped it might affect the way you speak about her, because I'd already seen the tweets you had made that seemed to be priming people to be disgusted by her.
I seriously cannot believe that Jimmy has gone this long without watching that review. And I also can't believe it never occurred to him that a tweet could be different from an hour-long book review. And you know what? I'd be willing to bet he still has not watched that review. But this all could have been avoided if he had, because then he would see that Rachel doesn't talk about Gabbie at all. She talks about the poetry book that she was there to review because that is her job.
So that's me bringing up what I already told you. I think at this point, though, I don't know what else I can comfortably say. I feel like I have more to say, but at the moment feel very betrayed by you going to Twitter before me and don't know what I can consider safe. I literally thought about for a couple of days what to say in response to the tweets I had seen from you, and I understand the review already being out has messed that up, and I probably should have checked, but in the end, I was just trying to be a good friend to both of you because I know how much hate she receives, and I don't think you are a person who would want to know. I said yes in action, but it certainly means that an action you may be about to take could hurt somebody. All in all, I'm very disappointed and extremely sad. And again, all of that is true. And again, there are going to be people under this video who are like, don't care. We hate Gabbie, and we think she deserves, we think Gabbie's in the wrong. We think Gabbie's bad, and Gabbie might be in the wrong.
Well, there actually are not going to be any people under this video because comments were turned off. But I don't think Jimmy knows his audience because I've been around for a bit and I've never really seen hate thrown for the sake of throwing hate. I mean, there's always going to be trolls and troublemakers, but his audience as a whole, or, well, I don't know if they're still his audience because I feel he's been very busy alienating people these past few weeks. But pre-Gabbie drama, I feel his audience as a whole was not really inclined to hate people just for the sake of it.
Gabbie might do bad things, but I still don't think that means as her friend, I wouldn't say, hey, this thing hurts her. And by the way, as other people's friends, if Gabbie is hurting them, I would absolutely, as their friend, do something too. The reason why I haven't with Rachel is because I believe our friendship ended, and it was because of Rachel's actions, which are about...
Well, you you better start filming, Jimmy, because Gabbie has been very busy lately. Or wait, does it only count if Gabbie hurts someone that you know? I mean, I'm pretty sure she hurt Rachel. However, even though that, whatever you want to call it, happened in April, I'm not really... Did Jimmy ever reach out to Gabbie to say, hey, Gabbie, treating Rachel that way was wrong? Or did he just, like, leave it to the little few seconds he mentioned in this video where he's like, yeah, I don't agree with Gabbie calling Rachel sexist terms and all that, and I don't think Rachel's a narcissist? Oh my god. Did he... Wait a minute. So, if Gabbie does bad things, he'll call it out, but I'm getting the strong impression from this video that when Gabbie went on her rampage back in April, he didn't say anything. He definitely didn't post anything publicly, and I would be willing to bet at this point that he did not contact Gabbie and say, hey, this is hurting Rachel, my friend. I mean, I guess, you know, Rachel's no longer his friend, but it's like disappointing and annoying and frustrating. And I'm like, I don't know, was he always this way? Or is he like absorbing some of Gabbie's personality where like you can never accept that you've done something wrong and just criticism is never allowed? Because that is just not, that is not how you grow as a person. That is, oh man. Oh boy. I think my brain just broke.
To see. Well, I'm disappointed and sad too. This is from Rachel. Did you miss all the time I publicly said over and over how excited I was to see if she had improved? Yes, of course I did. How I really believed that she had learned. Yes, I missed that too. How I thought it was commendable for her to reach out to me for a review. Didn't see that either. Again, none of it matters to the original point.
Silly Rachel. Expecting him to look at the tweets other than the ones he thinks are unfairly mean to Gabbie.
This is refuting something that is in a conversation that none of this would have changed, that I would say, just so you know, she's messed up in anticipation. And so maybe don't say as many not valid criticisms. It was, again, about the mean things like the making me physically ill stuff that was already sending new tweets and stuff Gabbie's way.
Well, I'm happy to report that I have finally figured out what Jimmy's point was this whole time. He wanted Rachel to stop tweeting mean things about Gabbie.
Anyway, and I'm not going to not review the book after she asked for it just because it wasn't positive. I also never even got close to inferring or to anything that you can infer that from. As for asking on Twitter, I'm not sorry. I didn't name you personally and was stressed. And unlike you, I don't have people around me I can go to and ask about this stuff. So I have to ask the only people who know what's happening and have seen the video. I'm about to be showing you a screenshot from me that's going to hurt to read out loud because it's not something I like sharing, just so you know, in response to that. But the unlike you thing emotionally hit me like a knife.
I see you there with that subtle guilt trip again.
After the end of it, I block Rachel. Now, she does say that she blocked me at some point in this video, in this interview, which is weird because if she did, it was for a very brief moment, because I definitely blocked her.
I'm sorry, is he seriously going to have a who blocked who first argument with himself?
And you can kind of tell that that happened because I was able to send messages after her last message. But maybe there was a brief period that at first when she said that, I was like, you liar, I blocked you. But I'm realizing there's probably a way in which she blocked me and then unblocked me shortly thereafter. And this happened and I just never noticed the block. Very, very well could happen. So I'm not ready to call her a liar for that.
Yes, he is. Okay. Ooh. I'm glad we settled that.
And I'm saying things like, you're drunk. Listen, I'm already really good at arguing. Fully sober, I can be in the wrong, and I'm going to beat 90% of people in an argument. I'm just good at it. That's probably an exaggeration of people like, oh, God, Jimmy's bragging about his arguing skills. I don't care if he's in the wrong. Now, fuck him. But I'm already good at arguing, and I was basically saying, like, I'm not going to take advantage of you and, like, try and, like, have a tweet smackdown here now. And so, but it was a lot of this, what do you want from me? And it was literally like, for my friend to have a one-on-one conversation with me, because at no point have you understood what I've been trying to say, or at least shown that you've understood. You've misrepresented everything I've said so far. So I just want to have that one-on-one.
So when you saw the conversation was going badly and that your point was not coming across, why did you not just call Rachel?
I go to bed that night thinking, like, I handled that really well. I was like, not well, but like gentlemanly, like.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and say the gentlemanly thing to do is to not white knight for someone who doesn't even want you to white knight. I mean, you said Gabbie didn't ask you to do this, so I assume Gabbie did not ask you to do this. It is not a gentlemanly thing to interfere for a lady's honor when said lady does not want you to do so.
So the thing I was going to say that is weird to me is that you see these circled check marks like she didn't read them. The thing is that I know she did. So something happened when I blocked her because I actually waited for her to see these last 2 messages before I blocked.
Again with the blocking. I also really love how he says that he really wanted to have that one-on-one conversation with Rachel whilst simultaneously never making a step toward having that happen, and also blocking her so she couldn't contact him anyway. And I especially love how he just had to have the last word, and he made sure she read his last 2 messages before blocking her.
I thought you were my friend.
You know, I bet Rachel thought you were her friend too, and then this whole debacle just opened her eyes to the fact that you actually have no respect for her or what she does.
And that's the actual conversation that happened, all of it. Obviously, there's more stuff that happened on Twitter, but as far as the stuff actually between us, that she still seems to be representing that I tried to guilt her into not releasing a review, which is a thing that you have to pull out and go, if I add all of this context and add all of these things and add the fact that, and take away the fact that they were friends and she would have understood what he meant when he was talking, if you take all of that away and you add all the things you need to add, it takes a lot of work.
Is he saying that because they were friends, Rachel should have been able to read his mind and understand what he meant, even though he never actually said what he meant? What?
The fact of the matter is, at no point did I say she shouldn't. In fact, I said the opposite. I'm trying not to go up too much. Let me see if I can find the top without accidentally showing the one before. Rachel and I also used to be quite a bit flirty.
We don't need to know that.
If she wants to finally have that private conversation, she has my phone number. So when she mentions the blocked everywhere, you can still text me.
So you come in with a very vague request that I'm still not entirely sure I'm right when I think I guessed that you just want Rachel to tweet nicer about Gabbie Hanna. So you come in with that very vague request, make a fuss, get offended, block Rachel everywhere, and you want her to come to you? I really don't see that happening.
I do think that Rachel's motivations for the reviews and all the Gabbie Hanna content she has done was definitely views, but the motivations for lots of things I do are views.
Also, Rachel loves poetry. That was probably also a motivation. That's also probably why she's a booktuber. But I'm starting to think he's never actually looked at Rachel's channel. And I mean, if he had watched her review, he would have seen how passionate she was about Gabbie's book.
At the end of the day, I think there is plenty of guilt to go around. I don't have much that I think I care to apologize for, though. Honestly, the only thing there would kind of be is like, Rachel, we had a good enough, I don't see anything in these notes, but we had a good enough friendship that maybe I should have unblocked you sooner and maybe I should have talked to you sooner because I've missed our friendship. I've missed our conversations. I've missed talking, but I also was very hurt. And honestly, it's a betrayal thing. It really is where I'm like, we were having a conversation and you went to have parts of our private conversation on Twitter. And now it's literally like, if Rachel and I ever talk again, I will literally start the conversation with, just to be clear, none of this conversation is going to be happening on social media in some way, correct? I don't know. Something's probably going to happen. There's going to be something in the future. Gabbie will say something somewhere, and then someone will be like, oh, after what you said in that, what about now, Jimmy? I know. All that's coming in the future. And you know what? Fuck off.
All right. Well, thank you for the honesty. I shall fuck right off as soon as I finish this video.
I'm going to do my show. I'm going to do my activism, and I'm going to try and be a good friend to my friends. And that is the only thing I did, was try to be a good friend to my friends.
So how are you trying to be a good friend to Rachel? Because from where I sit, it looks like you gave all the friendships to Gabbie and all the responsibility to Rachel.
And if I did it wrong, it wasn't for lack of trying to do it the right way. And I will take correction on the right way to have done it, but not from a bunch of strangers on the internet. I'm going to talk to a therapist. Because a lot of people on the internet think that the stuff that they put in the comment section is that good. And in the future, if something seems whack that you just can't believe I did it, maybe consider the idea that I didn't and ask.
All right. So I have to admit I never saw these demands, but I don't stalk Jimmy's comment section. So for all I know, people were being horribly rude. However, the way, like at all. So 3 things. So first, this was way too long. It could have been, you know, like 15 minutes, like this is what happened, this is what I intended to have happen. Rachel, I am so sorry. If you ever feel comfortable reaching out to me, please feel free to do so. Of course, that would probably require Jimmy to be a totally different person for that version of this video to have happened, but it would have been so much better than this. Second, did I mention how long this was? Because this was like almost an hour, and that is wild. He mentions that it was going to go to someone and then would be released, and I cannot believe an editor looked at this and thought, okay, this is good. There's just so much rambling and so many uhs and ums and so much filler. It could have been edited down to like 30 minutes. And third, okay, so you say that, you know, you're going to keep doing your show, you have employees, you gotta keep on working to make that money. Totally understandable. Telling people to fuck off and to kick rocks is not how you keep your audience. If there are actually people out there that are saying, you know, oh, Jimmy, you did this, you should, you know, apologize, and you and Gabbie deserve each other, and so on and so forth, I would be willing to bet they're trolls or troublemakers and not long-term fans. However, you're essentially grouping everyone together when you tell people to go kick rocks. And I'm seriously shocked that the editor was like, this is fine. Is that editor not worried about his job? But, I mean, ever since this video was released, I've seen Jimmy's channel just, like, take a little nosedive. And I'm not really surprised because I wasn't that big of a fan. I'm not really into the Sometimes show, but now that I'm thinking about it, there were a lot of things from the past few years that I didn't really think about, but they were kind of like red flags. Like, in the beginning, it was just his unnecessary mentions of his high libido, which is like, we really don't need to know that. And then there was all of his, I don't even know what they were, like shows, I guess, like The Line, r/news, now the Sometimes show. I could be forgetting some, but just like he would start something up, essentially beg us to watch it, and then it would disappear. And like, it was, I think he's most proud of the Sometimes show, partly because I'm pretty sure he said that, and also because he essentially would beg people to watch it, and he teased it for a long time about how it was like the best thing he's ever made, we're all gonna love it. And no, it is not at all like the content that I initially came here for, and I'm not really into late night TV show styles, you know? And I have a weird feeling that if Jimmy heard me say that, he would insult me and imply there's something wrong with me for not liking that type of TV. I don't know, I felt it's been really weird because I felt kind of like guilted into watching something, which is just so weird because, I mean, it's YouTube. You don't see celebrities guilting people into watching their movies. I know it's his livelihood, and there are apparently other people relying on him. And I have to say, if I was one of those people, I would be job hunting right now because I don't like to, you know, play therapist or doctor on the internet, but just something is off about this whole thing. And then he made his Twitter and Instagram private, and it's like, it's a really wild ride. And I would not feel safe having my livelihood in the hands of this man. So, you know, please like and subscribe, leave a comment if you so desire, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!